Well, now, I just said there's so many things I want to ask you about, like the Titanic, for example. Now, there was so much publicity about James Cameron in terms of being a very tough director. And, of course, it all paid off in as much that it was a very successful movie. But how tough was it from your point of view of playing the captain?
Well, I had a ball. I mean, I suppose it's unpopular to say that in a way, but I had a great time with Jim. I mean, we kind of met, and we got on really well. I suppose I kind of made him aware of who I was. I wasn't someone that was going to kind of, you know, slip away into the background every time he shouted, you know. I kind of stood up to him a little bit.
Does he shout a lot?
He does shout an awful lot, yeah. Usually over a microphone as well, so it's not just shouting, it's actually broadcasting, you know. And he will rip people apart publicly in a broadcast mode, which for some people it doesn't go down very well, but for other people, the subject quite often deserved that kind of lambasting.
Is it just because he's a perfectionist? Is that why he's so
he is. I mean,
tough?
he admits himself he's a compulsive obsessive, or an obsessive compulsive. I can't remember which way around he says it, but I think compulsive obsessive. And he really does. He sets very high standards for himself, and he expects other people to set the same level of standards within their own abilities as he sets within his own abilities. Of course, the problem is his abilities are enormous. He's probably one of the most intelligent men I've ever met. He's massively brainy, and he's keen about everything. Someone comes along who's got this very kind of minimalist interest themselves, and he'll plunder their interest, you know. He'll draw them out on what they
It's such an incredible story, though. I should imagine it was, you know, great to be involved in.
It was. I had a great time, and it was. What was wonderful about it was the recreations. I mean, the kind of the technology that went into that. The engineering was phenomenal, really phenomenal, and they duplicated a virtually life-size bridge at the right height above the water below, and the right went to Southampton Dock. And of course I stood on the bridge there looking down at this wonderful replica of Southampton Dock, and it was just great to get into character. And the bridge was very quiet, and they were hardly anybody spoke. Everyone knew their duty, and we just wandered around, getting into character. The interesting thing about Southampton Dock was, because of the way it had been set up, and not a lot of people know this, the ship, the replica, which was like 7/8 full size, had to point north, which meant the sea was on the port side, because the winds came from the north. So to blow the smoke as if the ship was sailing, they had to face into the wind, and also because of the aerodynamic thing, we couldn't have it side on, otherwise the whole thing would have blown up, because the winds are quite strong. We were in Mexico. So the Southampton dock itself had to be built on the land side, which meant it was on the starboard side of the ship. Now, when it left Southampton, it was the other way around. So we had to do what was called flop it. So everything had to be flopped. In other words, we all had to dress with our coats going the other way.
Oh, did you?
All our brasses were around the other way. We all had to salute with our left hand. People had to wave with our left hand. The horse brasses had to be... All the wording and all the lettering on everywhere was all mirror image. The whole thing, everything. I mean, even the tiniest of things.
So suppose when you watched it back...
The women had their little kind of their hats on tilted the other way, so that when they flopped it, it would look like it would like when they did it in the studio.
How
when it wasn't
amazing.
flopped. And it was the biggest scene in the film, and it was flopped. It was incredible.
I suppose when you're watching it back, you would think you're watching to see if everything actually flopped the right direction.
We did, yeah, and you can't... I haven't seen... I've looked very closely. You can't see any... There's no cracks in that one, you know.
Bernard, I could talk to you for hours. I know you're off to New Zealand and everything. Just before you leave the studio...
Yes, I'm doing Lord of the Rings.
I know. Yeah. How did you say that phrase?
I'm not going to say it now.
I'll go on.
No, you were pretty close.
Because I can't. No, I was way off.
It was Lech Wałęsa, actually.
No, it was the other one.
Oh, no, I'm not going to say that now.
You won't even talk about Boys in the Back stuff, will you?
Like what?
You won't even talk about the boys, will you?
Talk about what?
I got to leave it at that. Will you thank Bernard Hill?